Hey, I'm Mike Farrington. Welcome back to the boardroom. Check out my new planer. This is a Rockwell rc-33 thickness planer. It has a 13-inch planing width and a 6-inch thickness capacity. It weighs 295 pounds, has an 11.5 feet per minute feed rate, and a 2-horsepower induction motor. This particular model was made in 1982, and the planing head rides up and down on 4 posts. Why is that important, you ask? This planer was the first to utilize the 4-post design, often considered the grandfather of the current crop of modern planers because nearly all modern planers use 4 posts. This style of planer is ubiquitous. There's a better than good chance if you watch this channel with any regularity, you have this style of planer or one of its descendants in your shop right now. I bought this one ahead of a move my family and I were undertaking after selling my big SCMI planer. I knew my shop was going to be a little smaller, but still wanted a powerful planer. I scooped this one up for a good deal and gave it the refresh it needed to earn its place in the pantheon that is my shop. Breakdown is pretty normal. Stuff is crusty and frozen in place and time. Being 44 years old, I'd say it's in fine shape. It just needs to be scraped clean, throw some new bearings in it. Oh, and I'm going to install a helical cutter head. So the pry bar, torch, dead blow mallet, amongst others, are all the star of the show here. The only weird thing I would say is that the cutter head and gearbox come out as an assembly and then will be later disassembled at the bench. One thing that may not be obvious when viewing, as I'm taking various parts off, everything is like shockingly heavy. Also, this is actually the second time I drained the gear oil. I drained as much as I could before turning it on, added some fresh, ran it again before disassembly. The 2 most difficult parts of this project for sure were splitting the gear case and removing the cutter head from its carrier bearing. Eventually this method did work and I was able to pound out the cutter head. I'll save you the trouble of watching all of that. There we go. Good job making that look heavy, Mike. As I finish up disassembly, I fall back to my standard method of cleaning. Everything that fits in the ultrasonic cleaner goes in, along with some Simple Green. Anything that doesn't fit gets soaked and scrubbed. Since Simple Green is water-based, it can leave some flash rust behind. No problem, I use a product called T9 Bro Shield, invented over 40 years ago by the Boeing Airplane Company. It's a 2-part system. The first is a rust and stain remover sprayed on and scrubbed off. Then a protectant is sprayed on and buffed. It smells super weird, but it works crazy good. Let us start reassembly by installing the anti-kickback pawls. Now, I know what you're thinking right at this very moment. Why did it say Rockwell Invicta on the label? Well, as I understand it, the Invicta machine company was started by some German dudes who were looking for a lower cost location to manufacture their line of industrial woodworking tools. Apparently, even in the 70s, it was expensive to make stuff in Deutschland. So off to Brazil they went, and after defeating Blanca from Street Fighter, set up shop and produced some very innovative machines to include this planer. Next up is the chip breaker. It swings up and down on a rod. That rod is held in position with these bushings. This bushing also acts as a lock to hold the planer head in place so it doesn't slip down when planing tons of lumber. And tightening this knob is what locks the head in place. This shaft acts as an up-down limiter for the chip breaker. I decided to swap out the bed roller bearings. The original ones were shielded on the side facing out. I decided to go with rubber sealed bearings because I'm hardcore. Setting bed roller height is super important. Generally speaking, a higher setting, say 20 thousandths of an inch, would be used if you plane mostly like pallet lumber and 2x material. A lower setting, like 2 thousandths of an inch, is better for really clean and straight lumber. So if you always use a jointer first and then head to the planer, use a lower setting like 2 thousandths of an inch as I'm doing here. Please note the socket that is supporting the inner race of the bearing. This ensures that the stress from hammering isn't transferred to the seals or the actual balls themselves. These bearings are what the chain cogs rotate on to crank the planer head up and down. This, of course, will make more sense as I continue assembly. If I had to cast some criticism at Invicta tools, having owned 3 of them now, it would be that while heavy, their castings could have been a little cleaner. If you look carefully, you'll find slop, small voids, sharp edges are fairly common, more so on their very large industrial tools. I think with this planer, they had it dialed in, and I'm guessing that's due to the huge volume. They sold a buttload of these things, and I think that they really refined the process over time. Okay, with the 4 posts back in place, I'm able to reinstall the chain. I put a little dab of oil on the tensioner. The crank goes back on along with some thread locker. Always a good idea to soak oil-impregnated bronze bushings before installation. Being 40 plus years old, I'm sure these were thirsty. Curiously, ball bearings were not used here, yet they were in the bed rollers. I'm guessing, but I think this design choice was made because the diameter of a ball bearing would have spread the infeed and outfeed rollers too far away from the cutter head. I will say if lubed with any frequency, bronze bushings will hold up for a long time in a high pressure application like this. So I really don't see this as a cheap or low quality choice. There's the old seal that I pulled out. Couple small items here. A fresh seal for the gearbox cutter head port. And also I forgot to install the springs for the chip breaker earlier. Not sure I totally agree, but this was the first portable planer, if you could call it that. It wasn't until the mid-'80s that lunchbox style planers were introduced. Wow! So the helical head I ordered finally came in. Installation starts with this bearing. I'm using a driver sized to the outer diameter. The end of the cutter head has a smaller diameter that fits in the bearing. It needs to be pressed in. And it also has a larger diameter that needs to fit into the oil seal. This is a little gangster, but I'm using a bearing and seal driver to drive the bearing and the gearbox as one assembly onto the cutter head. This would have been super easy if I had 4 arms, and I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but this worked well enough. Once again, I know what you're thinking. Why was Rockwell involved with Invicta? Well, at its founding, Invicta was just a manufacturer, so they contracted with Delta Rockwell to be like their street dealers and take care of import and retail. Tick of history, since I find it interesting, and this is my video. In 1945, Rockwell purchased Delta. Over the years, that pair teamed up with a few different companies to make it a threesome, in this case, Invicta. In the early 80s, they conceived this little gem of a planer. However, as you know, these things never seem to work out cleanly. At some point, Rockwell began talks to sell its power tool division as well as Delta to Pentair, of all companies. Nearest I could tell, that deal was finalized around 1984. I'm actually pulling the cutter head into position versus hitting it with a hammer. I thought pulling it just seemed smarter. Anyway, there's some confusion as to all these dates and when this happened, but that's basically the explanation as to the changes in labeling on these planers over time. She seems to have an invisible touch. There's your song recommendation for the video. So where is Invicta now? Even all their great tools and neat innovations couldn't save them. Delta had them make a 15-inch version of this planer known as the DC-380, which is probably what I should have bought if I'm being honest. Essentially, it's a copy of this design but just 2 inches wider. Well, at some point during the Pentair Delta acquisition phase, the corporate suits shifted production from the Invicta plant in Brazil to Taiwan and then on to China. It's my opinion that Invicta never really regained its footing after that, though they did keep importing some of their more industrial tools to America until the early 2010s or so. So in short, they were just simply swallowed in the tornado of 80s and 90s offshoring. All right, story time. Are you ready? Way back in the day when I was first getting started building cabinets, I worked in this small little shop. They had a table saw there made by Invicta. It was a model RT40, ran a 16-inch blade, 7.5 horse motor. If you've never been in front of one, words just cannot describe how massive this saw is. Well, dumb little Mikey Mike had his first and only real kickback on that saw. It was like a 3/4 inch sheet of maple plywood. It's probably 18 wide, 60 long, something like that. I was switching my hand position mid-cut, and I just didn't have very good skills at the time. And it kicked back at like Mach 2. Hit me waist high, smashed my pager that was attached to my belt. For the kids out there, if you don't know what a pager is, research that on your own time. Anyway, it hit me so hard it bent the AA battery that was powering the pager. And the bruise that developed over the next few days had nearly every color on Bob Ross's palette. Phthalo blue, sap green, cadmium yellow, even some midnight black. The best part was it was like leaking down my leg day over day. Anyway, I survived to fight another day. My pager did not. And since then, I'm lucky to have not had another real kickback. That was a very fun and folksy story, Mike. Thank you for that. This is just a dust collection adapter to take it from whatever size it is up to 6-inch. It's easy to get nostalgic about super heavy, old-timey cast iron tools and wish for the good old days, or to lust after the hyper-expensive modern tools. I know I do. But there's an upside here. Tools like this planer really paved a new path towards lighter but still capable design. This in turn has made hobby woodworking more accessible and made entry into professional woodworking more affordable. It's just a tiny, tiny bit of snipe that's acceptable in my opinion. Whether you like it or not, this small but mighty planer marked a permanent turning point in woodworking machine manufacturing, and for that matter, the broader economy. Overall, has this been a good thing or a bad thing? I'll leave that up to you. Thanks for watching. Till next time.